Hello, everybody. This is the Scottish Rugby Podcast. This is our Wales v Scotland preview podcast. We're live now for our Patreons, so hello to anybody watching on Facebook or on our secret YouTube channel that we do. This is also available for download afterwards for audio listeners as well on all podcast channels. Happy to say we've got John Anderson with us again. Hello, John.
Hello, Kat. You know what? You know I love a Friday only Fins, mate. So you know I'm here for these.
It's always good. We've also joined us from the Uneducated Rugby Podcast. We've got Karen Harris. Hello, how are you?
Hi there, Cammy. Yeah, really good. Really excited to do this. Thanks very much for having me on.
No, how do people find that your podcast? What apps and things are you on and social media?
Yeah, so we've decided to do it purely just audio for the time being. I don't know if that's directive on my front that I'm not going to look good looking enough to be on video or anything else. But so any good streaming platforms such as Spotify, Apple Play, those sort of things. Just look for Uneducated Rugby Podcast. I think we did a podcast last night previewing the teams, myself and Lucy Jones, and Lucy was very pessimistic and I was a bit more optimistic for a change.
I was going to say I was listening to that before we came on, and I'll come to John in a minute and ask this, but you seem more optimistic than I think the mood I'm picking up from other Welsh fans on social media. So what's giving you hope?
I think it's pure blind faith. There's nothing else. I think I said it on the podcast. I've got nothing else to base it on other than 20 years of Principality faith. I did say as well that I think it's the first time in 20 years I've asked my stepdad every year, are we going to beat Scotland? And every year it's been unequivocal. Yeah, 100%. Easy. We'll beat Scotland. Don't worry about it. Look, obviously, we've lost a few times. But this year I asked, are we going to beat Scotland? Unequivocal. No, we are not beating Scotland. And I did a podcast earlier in the week with, I think, Craig Manson, who's been on this pod. And I was looking at the teams and it's so well. If you were to do a Wales-Scotland combined team, you'd go fully Scotland pretty much, or 10 Scots at least, which is a worrying sign for Welsh fans.
Yeah, we'll come on the lineups in a minute. John, I mean, I think we've said in our little group chat, I feel extremely confident, but I think Karen's got a point that it's the Principality. That's the only thing that's kind of stopping me going full out. We're going to absolutely smash them, is the fact it's at the Principality.
Yeah, I think there's the two aspects of that. It being at the Principality, again, I said that when we were sort of having the debate about whether there would be fans, wouldn't there be fans, I kind of indicated that actually no fans was a benefit for Scotland. So with the Principality, the atmosphere and stuff like that, you know, it's going to be, it certainly gives Wales a lift. The other kind of side of it is that we also had such optimism a few years ago and went down and promptly got battered. So like for me, classic Scots, rationally, for me, we're a better team than Wales. We're a better side than Wales, man for man. We should beat Wales, right? This is again, and I spoke about this before England. It's a huge test of this Scotland team's character to be able to go down to a place like the Principality where they are favourites and they should be winning. And I've talked about it with the pro club teams as well. The Scottish mentality was still, we need just proof that we are now at that point where we believe we're winners and can win these games. So a huge weekend for Scottish rugby, not just in the context of the Six Nations, but I think this is a crucial match for this generation of players, actually, and it's as big as that for me.
Yeah. If we go at the lineups then, and we'll start at the pack at the front. So we've got Wales got Wyn Jones, Ryan Elias, am I pronouncing that right?
Elias, I think it is, yeah.
Yeah, and Thomas Francis, and then we've got them up against Pierre Schumann, Stuart McInally, and WP Nel. It's a swap for the Scots bench for starters. Karen, how that's quite an experience. Apart from at hooker, it's still quite an experienced front row for Wales. Are you? Do you know? Is the fact that Scotland maybe you've got old man WP Nel and maybe kind of Pierre Schumann, who's relatively new to international rugby, is that giving you some reason for hope in the first half scrums?
No. In short, no. I thought personally I'd have started Schumann and Nel against England because I don't know if you've heard on the podcast, but I'm really not a fan of Sutherland and Ferguson. I think both have been shown up as poor scrummagers in the past, particularly against Ireland last year and on the Lions tour. I think possibly even it's worse considering the fact that you've gone with that front row that got away with murder in the last 2 minutes against England.
Whoa. No.
I didn't even get a response. That was the only intention. But, you compare obviously whether or not you were lucky in those scrums, but you compare that to Thomas Francis against Ireland, who didn't get a decision for love or money against Andrew Porter in the first 40 minutes. So, yeah, in short, no, it doesn't give me hope. I think probably the only hope is George Turner's a better player, in my opinion, than McInally. Although McInally's impact off the bench versus George Turner, who would I rather see coming off the bench be McInally? So I'm a bit worried about the last 20 then.
Yeah, it's interesting, John, that we've switched the bench like this. Now, I think Townsend said he's purely said it's just down to the fact that we've got basically two top class front rows, and it doesn't really matter who starts at some, WP Nel, is probably going to end up playing 50 minutes rather than 30, which you probably won't thank Gregor Townsend for. But it's not. Townsend said in the week, this is Scotland are taking the bomb squad approach. It's just the fact that we've got two bomb squads.
Yeah, and I think Kevin Miller, who's been who writes for the blog and has been on the podcast as well, has affectionately titled them the BAM Squad, which I think I love that, and I think we should definitely get that. Look, I think absolutely. I think there is an element of, so for me there's an element of the experience aspect to this coming through as well. I think Nel, I would heavily disagree with you that Sutherland and Ferguson are poor scrummagers. I think Nel is an exceptional scrummager, and technically he will paint a picture to the referee that hopefully will get Scotland on top. Again, taking into account the crowd, and I think it's just a smart play from Townsend to think about all the variables and say, let's get these really experienced players out there. Schumann's going to do what Schumann does. He's going to run about and smash people and carry hard, and he's a strong scrummager as well. Actually, again, I think Turner off the bench is a really smart play, because whilst I think I agree with you, he is the best hooker on form, certainly. I think we've seen him live, Cammy. He's like a centre when he gets going. He's an absolute train. So that coming on against maybe some tired legs, tired shoulders, you really wouldn't be thanking the Scotland bench when Turner waltzes on. Yeah, so it's a smart. It's interesting, but I think the BAM squad will do fine.
Yeah, the second row then. Now this is the big thing for Wales, I think, Karen, is that you've not got Alan Wynne-Jones. Yeah, 500-year-old Alan Wynne-Jones. And I wonder whether that's indicative of the problem that this Welsh team has, that you've got guys like Ken Owens and Alan Wynne-Jones have been around for decades almost, and is this kind of the Wales's chickens coming home to roost, that when these guys are now unavailable, the drop off is more significant than it should be if kind of more players had been blooded or had an opportunity?
Yeah, I think that is obviously crucial, especially Alan Wynne-Jones. You could argue some of these players have been sort of roadblocks in the way of development for some players. The thing with Alan Wynne-Jones going is that you've also lost Corey Hill and Jake Ball last year because they went to Japan and Australia respectively. So you're losing first choice, third choice, and fourth choice second rows in the space of 6 months. And then it's really difficult to get those young players in, because you look at Will Rowlands has come through. Rowlands, he's great for club, but hasn't quite transitioned into international. Then you've got Seb Davis on the bench, who is a schoolmate of mine, so I can't say any bad words on him. But behind him, then you're looking at two 21-year-olds in Shunza and Ben Carter, and Shunza doesn't get in the Exeter team. So it's clear that there's a deficiency there in the second rows that needs to be rectified, and possibly this is a good thing going forward to the next World Cup. having the chance to blood these younger players in.
Yeah. Scotland again, we've got Gilchrist and Johnny Gray. John, I think there's a big challenge, I think, for Grant Gilchrist here for me. I'm no doubt about Johnny Gray, but we've said before on the podcast that Grant Gilchrist it blows hot and cold a little bit with his form.
Yeah,
absolutely. And he had a superb game against England last weekend. I think this is an opportunity for Grant Gilchrist to show that he can do it across successive games for Scotland.
Yeah, totally agree, Cam. Totally agree. And I think Gilchrist was in there for a very specific reason last week. We knew the English line-out were going to be strong. We knew the English maul was going to be strong. And if, the best defence you can have against the maul is just to stop it at source. And Gilchrist, with the way the weather had been predicted to be as well, there was an element of just creating that security, knowing that you've got that option of him as probably... God, Edinburgh fans, I do this in these OnlyFans. Like, I actually give Edinburgh fans what they want to hear. Gilchrist is probably our best line-out operator. There you are. I said it, guys. Enjoy it. Stop the letters now. But I agree. I think form-wise, he has to move that forward into this match. And also the challenge he has here is very different. I think Wales if you think about the line-out, I think Wales defensively, line-out wise, are incredibly strong. I think Adam Beard in particular creates absolute havoc. Offensively, maybe less so, and Gilchrist might find that actually his role is very different this week. So it'll be really interesting to see how he goes.
Well, I think speaking of that, because we've got Sam Skinner in the back row now. There's a lot of people calling for Rory Darge, a lot of people calling for Magnus Bradbury to come in, and I wonder whether or not the fact that Wales line out defensively is so good is why now we've effectively got Skinner coming in for Richie, because we said on the podcast earlier this week, Richie's a very effective line operator. So Scotland effectively are bringing it in a set piece specialist almost to replace Richie. And I think looking at that logic, John, it seems like a fairly straightforward swap.
Yeah. I mean, Skinner was again one of the guys that actually, when the debate was happening about when we obviously knew very early on that Richie wouldn't be available, the chat was Bradbury or do you shut? I think Haining was mentioned as well, which that crazy talk. But anyway, but Skinner still probably doesn't get the respect he deserves amongst the Scotland fans. He's a world-class player, and Edinburgh have got themselves an absolute gem getting him coming up to them next year. He covers both, and he's considered. He said himself he considers himself probably more a second row than a back row these days, but he's effective at both. So I think it was a really sensible decision because again you've got that line out option, but he is an absolute wrecking ball when it comes to carrying. So it's a different approach to Richie. I don't think Richie could ever be replaced like for like because I think his skill set is so unique, but. There's many different ways to win a rugby match. So let's go with it.
I want to talk about Jack Morgan now. I'm going to confess. I watched the URC. I didn't know much about Jack Morgan. I didn't realise there'd been all this hype around him down in Wales. And I felt quite bad about that until I then checked the URC website to see what stats there were, and he still listed it being at the Scarlets. So look, if the official league doesn't know where he plays, then I can't feel too bad about not knowing much more. But there seems to have been a clamour, I think, for a while, Cowan, about Jack Morgan being the new Sam Warburton and a lot of excitement around him. Is he that good?
Yes. In short, I haven't been this excited about a 7 in I don't know how long. I haven't been excited by Wales debuting this long. I think the guy is brilliant defensively, especially as a jackler. And you mentioned Sam Skinner, obviously, there. And that is probably one area Wales will look to attack now, especially with Jamie Ritchie being missing. That are Scotland going to be slightly slower to the breakdown? Is there an opportunity for better jackling over the ball than we saw against Ireland? We're certainly hoping that's the case. I do worry that the back row is more reactionary than proactive because, last week that the big talk was the breakdown was an issue. We were poor in the breakdown, this, that, and the other thing. And actually, if I look at it on paper, I think last week's back row is maybe better suited to face Scotland. And this week's back row is better suited for Ireland in some ways with the added weight to Moriarty. But I am very excited about Jack Morgan in short. It's just a bit of a surprise that Pivac's made such a big U-turn on a guy who 12 months ago wouldn't get in a game against Canada or Argentina, and said that his ball carrying wasn't good enough, said that his skill set wasn't what was required for Wales, said, you know, a lot of things that were highly detrimental to Jack Morgan, really. So it's quite a surprise.
I remember when we had a similar thing with Chris Fusaro, John.
Oh, yes.
And then Scott Johnson just said, do you know what? I'm going to give in to public pressure and just throw him on against England.
Yeah,
just to prove a point.
One cap, and it was against England.
I will say Jack Morgan's a different class of player than Chris Fusaro, though.
Whoa,
Carwyn, you're lucky that Johnny and Craig aren't here, because you know Power Five, which is his hometown club, so I'll let it slide.
I mean, I'll simply say wow just on behalf of them, but had not that player been here,
it's gonna. I mean, John, we've not had. It's Ross Moriarty against Scotland has always I don't know. He's just raised his game against. He always has caused us problems. I think that's. The battle of the back row is going to be interesting. I think Scotland have got the upper hand, but I think there is an unknown with a debutant, because either they rise to the occasion, or they find they find it hard. It takes a couple of. We know some of Scottish debutants who it takes 2-3 games before you get used to the pace of international rugby. And Scotland, if I was a back row playing now professional rugby, Scotland is not the game I'd want to make my debut as a young back row forward. I'd rather be maybe Italy. Do you know what I mean? Like Carwyn said, a summer tour against Canada, Argentina. It's going to take a lot to kind of shift.
I think that's fair, because I think the Scotland back row in particular is, with Fagerson looking very, very talented last week, I think the Scotland back row is quite settled in the way it approaches the game. I think also, obviously, as a 7, he'll find himself under a lot of pressure from the Scottish front row. Surprisingly, is very good over ball, and McInally and Turner, both former back rows who have played back row for Scotland. There's a lot of jackal options. There's a lot of breakdown options, and I think, obviously, as part of a coming in as a young lad into a back row that maybe got he's got absolutely smashed by Ireland at the breakdown last week. There's a lot of pressure on that, and then Townsend's bench, which we'll probably come on to, it's not made any easier for them, because you've got Bradbury, who offers something very different, and Rory Darge, who is just lighting things up. He's our version of, well, probably, he's been absolutely tearing up trees and is a complete nuisance at the break. So it's a very tough match to make your debut. I agree. If you were to cherry pick a match, it would be Canada at home in a summer tour. But
it was baffling why he didn't get selected. But you mentioned there, obviously, that Scotland have got some good jacklers over the ball, and the one thing I would say with Jack Morgan is he's not known for his attacking qualities or his clear out qualities. It's his defensive. He's an old class 7, the sort of McCall, Pocock, Warburton era, as opposed to the modern brand of Watson and co. So that could be a problem, definitely.
We forgot to mention Darcy Graham as a jackler as well, John.
Well, I was given the forwards the love because we haven't quite got to the backs, but obviously,
we'll get there. Well, let's move. I mean, I don't know how much time to spend on 9 and 10. I mean, I forgot Nip. Is it who've Wales got at 9?
Thomas Williams. Which Wales seem to be struggling, Carwyn, about scrum halves at the minute. It's kind of to settle on a scrum half at the minute. Who's first choice for you at the moment for Wales? Is it Thomas? Thomas is first choice. He's got the most potential. He's got all the potential in the world. Honestly, the guy has so much potential. He either does one of two things, which Ireland last week he didn't try enough, and then normally he tries too much. He tries out the back, offloads X Factor every. I think Jonathan Davis Jiffy, the commentator, called him X Factor, and ever since then he's tried X Factor plays every single play. And I'd like to see him take that to the next level, the level that Ali Price has taken it. But I don't think it's coming anytime soon. And with the likes of Hardy and Gareth Davis, unfortunately, their form this year for Scarlets hasn't been where it should be or where we'd want it to be. So that's why they're definitely second or third choice currently.
Is a scrum half, Thomas Williams. For me, he still plays like you see him play and you think, oh, there's an up and coming 21-year-old who's got he's 27.
Yeah,
he's right. He's right in that George Horn mold of you think he plays like a kid with all the stupidity that comes with that, frankly. But then you forget that he actually is in the prime of his career and should be doing much more. And and when Gareth Davis is your option, then
to be fair though, John, Ali Price turned that round within a season. I think that's the issue. You look at where Ali Price was out of form and he put on a load of weight and he's admitted that himself. Yeah. And then a season later, he's within the space of a season he turned it around and he was Lions starting 9.
I agree. I think there was a season where it really turned around for Ali Price, but I think there was enough there in terms of you could see there was a maturity, there was development, there was building blocks that you could start to see the makings of a Lions scrum half. Maybe not I think that year there was such a meteoric change in his game that we were all very taken back. And that can happen, and I'm not saying for a second that Thomas Williams won't have that. When I watch him, if you compare maybe a couple of seasons ago Ali Price to Thomas Williams, those silly mistakes, I still would feel he looked younger. But he's a great player and he can turn it on, and that's the thing.
Hamish Allen makes a great point on the Facebook pages. Of course, Ali Price was mentored by Grieg.
Of course.
So that's what Thomas is missing. His own Greg Laidlaw.
His own rugby Jesus.
I don't know if there's much we can say about Finn and Ali Price, John, other than we know what's coming. I mean, to a certain extent, Wales know what's coming as well, and they're going to stretch them with box kicking and kicks to the backfield.
I think again this is a really big opportunity for Scotland to lay down that marker. Biggar was obviously the starting 10 for the Lions, so there's maybe a little bit of unfinished business there. I think Finn Russell, a big performance from Russell would hopefully just maybe silence the last of those crowing doubters that think Biggar's a better player.
Yeah. And then, so centres then, we've got Nick Tompkins and Owen Watkin for Wales. And then we've got Sione Tuipulotu and Chris Harris. We'll come on to Scotland in a minute. The Welsh centres, Carwyn, it's been a lot of chopping and changing in Wales. It's quite kind of hard to know who Wayne Pivac sees as his centre pairings.
Yeah, I don't have anything positive to offer here. You mentioned at the start I had positivity. I think the issue with Wales at the moment is I think our first choice, personally, my first choice centres would be Halaholo and North. North's obviously injured. Halaholo's been injured, coming back. And there's a combination there. You can see the plan. You've got a big ball carrier who's also got quite good hands. You've got an outside centre with real gas and big power. But you currently got two centres who, well, Watkins a fairly big man, but not a big man. Tompkins is a small man, and neither have the gas to play 13. So you've got these sort of 12 and a halves, really. Yeah. And you compare that to Ireland last week, who had a big ball carrier and an outside centre. And I said this on our podcast that possibly Ireland will be better going forward without Robbie Henshaw because you've got a better combination with a ball carrying 12 and a pacey 13. And I think that's what Scotland have this week, which is scaring the living daylights out of me because I don't know if you've seen the stat. Russ Petty put a stat, I think, that Sione Tuipulotu's played twice against Welsh Regions this year. Has got over 100 metres made, 9 defenders beaten, 3 tries. And, one of those games was against Owen Watkin at 12. So it's not bearing well, I'll tell you that.
Was that the one that Owen Watkin decided to channel his inner Super Rugby and tackling optional approach?
Yeah, it might have been, yeah.
The interesting thing, though, I suppose, John, with Sione is he's only just started playing 12 for Glasgow recently, and he's slotting in at 12 for Scotland. Kind of, he came over and played a lot of 13. I don't know what he did previously when he was in Japan, of course, and Australia before that, but I mean, slotted in fairly comfortably at 12 for for Wales. So it's for Scotland, sorry. So it's going to be interesting to see how he translate that. I mean, he finished the game there against England, and I think the fact I didn't notice he was on the pitch, I knew he'd come on, but I think the fact that there was no noticeable drop in the Scottish defensive effort kind of makes me feel quite confident about him slotting in this weekend.
Yeah, there's much debate actually at Glasgow as to what his best position is, because when he first came over, he started at 13, as you rightly say, and he looked pretty good there. Certainly, his attacking line's fantastic. To see him at 12, there maybe had been a wee bit of defensive naivety, but there's almost like maybe the way Scotland play suits that, because you've got Harris just organising the defence outside him, so Tuipulotu's kind of given a wee bit more free rein just to get a hand on ball and go and truck it up. I think certainly it speaks to quite a direct game plan to start off with. But yeah, he's been a very, very good find. I was listening to it was one of the Glasgow Warriors podcasts. They've got about 7 million of them now that all have different names. And it was Ross Thompson was saying that Tuipulotu has one of the best short kicking games he's ever seen in terms of those little grubbers, the little chip kicks. And it's not something we've seen from him yet. But he says in training, just the things this guy can do with boot to ball is incredible. So it'll be really interesting to see if we see that this week, or if we will just see the wrecking ball trucking it up. I think from a Welsh perspective, you missed out one key positive is that you've at least picked centres this week.
Yeah, well, although I think they're 2 12s, but yeah, sure.
Yeah. But it's better than a 14.
No, very true. I think we saw it last year, didn't we, with Watkin? Wasn't he skinned on the outside by Hogg when Scotland had 6 in the backfield versus Wales' 7, and still couldn't match up. So I think there's a bit of a worry there, but I'm hoping that Wales don't fall into the trap. You mentioned about trucking it up, that Scotland fake that play of just trucking it up and then play out the backfield crossfield kick to Duhan van der Merwe. I'm hoping that Wales manage to keep their width, but well, maybe we'll have Ryan Elias up against Darcy Graham on the other wing.
I'm conscious of time, and I know John's got an all-day breakfast to get to. So the way we know what's coming with the Scotland back three. I want to talk about the Welsh back three because Alex Cuthbert, is it 6? How many years? 6 years or something, or is it not quite as long since he's played for Wales? Lewis Rees-Zammit and I think Liam Williams, they picked themselves, but that's an interesting selection, Colin. Has there been anything about that come up from the camp as to why he's back?
Well, yeah, I think there's been a lot of comments on how well he's trained. I don't know, training is not the be all and end all; it's what you do on the pitch, and he has been performing well for Ospreys. And it's worth saying that if you've played for Exeter and then gone into the Ospreys, you've clearly improved your defence, and that was the key point that was much maligned with Cuthbert before. But the word is that he's trained very well, he's performing very well in training, and compared to someone like McNichol, who's a bit hot and cold, he's very steady hands now. I personally would have gone with Owen Lane, but Owen Lane wasn't selected in the squad for whatever reason. So is he as much of a worry as he was 6 years ago defensively? No. But I don't think he's the attacking prospect he was 6 years ago either. So it's a bit more of a steady Eddie selection than anything.
Okay, I'm going to put you both on the spot now. Carwyn, what's your prediction for the result this weekend?
I'm going to go with blind faith. Okay. I think Wales can pull off a result. It's going to need a very defensive effort, though. I think Jack Morgan could be crucial to that. So I'm going to go. I'll go with Wales 24, Scotland 21. It'll be tight either way, I think.
Oof. Okay, John.
Yeah, I think the Principality will play its part, but ultimately I think Scotland are too strong. I think they're too streetwise for Wales, and as long as there's no absolute catastrophes and no silly red cards, then I can see us winning comfortably. Could be 7 points, could be 10 points. So I can see us winning quite comfortably.
I'm going to go. Sorry, I'm going to go with John on this. I think
I didn't think I was going to win.
I think you get tight to the last 20 minutes, and then I think so. The Scottish bench and Finros, I think it'd be too much for Wales at that point. But we'll see. We'll see, because we don't, like I said, the principality factor. Well, Colin, thank you very much for joining us.
No, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much. And trying to, in your words, make sense of the Wales selection, which is almost impossible.
John, thank you as always. We're back.
Pleasure, Cam.
Back with the normal podcast Wednesday night, 8:30 p.m. live, and available afterwards on audio podcasts. For the moment, though, it's goodbye from me and goodbye from John and Carwyn.
Cheers all.
So long.